Well, a tremendous year for sure. It's quite a achievement to lead the league in hitting, and I think Charlie put a stamp on that early on, and just kept going. I mean, probably has been as consistent as any batting champ that I can remember. I mean, from start to finish. I can't remember too many stretches where Charlie didn't get a hit. I think there was one just sort of recently, right? There was a little bit of a gap there, but it was a small one. Can't say enough about the year Charlie had.
Well, Kyle Freeland this year, you saw both the good and the bad. What do you see for him going forward in terms of what he needs to do to develop and take it to the next level?
Well, Ed, I mean, I think there's a number of things that I think every player, every pitcher needs to improve on. Without going into a long dissertation, on the pitching side. I'll say that first of all, this was a great growth year for Kyle. To make this team out of spring training, to throw the ball like he did in the spring, and then start the season in our rotation, and be in it for most of the year. Based on performance. We saw a few changes in the delivery as he moved forward. To answer specifically your thoughts on what he needs to do, I think every pitcher, there's always the challenge of commanding the fastball, hitting spots with your fastball because it's the pitch that you're going to throw the most. The change of speeds component for Kyle, I think, will become important for him. I think he showed that durability-wise, he's in a good spot. We held up. Really proud of how he pitched, and I think that there was a run there with Sensatella and Kyle and Marquez and Hoffman that through like May and June we really needed these guys, and these guys stepped up. So really proud of that young group.
Talk about the end of the game, getting to walk around and thank the fans.
Yeah, I think that I was telling Drew Goodman on AT&T after the game that the first game of the year, that Friday afternoon, which is a tradition here in Denver, our opening game, what a great crowd that was. And I think the crowds here this weekend were also very special. And I think in between, I saw an involvement of our fans as they realized what we had going on. And I mean the crowd was great. This is a great sports town. It has a great following of football, basketball, and hockey and baseball. They get into their teams, and I think this team here was one that they could be proud of, and they showed up, man. I love when I leave the park and come to the park, different license plates from the surrounding areas, which is great. They're loud. When it gets exciting, and they can pull the guys through, which is awesome. So I can't say enough about the fans. They've been really, really good this year.
If you don't mind me asking, your personal schedule, would you be able to take a couple hours off here? You didn't start playing right away.
We do this. This is what we do, Nick. Very, very. Not very often do we take, I think mental breaks. We're always thinking, regardless of if we have an off day. So. Collectively, we've already spoken about rosters and these types of things. And there could be two different rosters, obviously, for Wednesday and if and when we advance. So, we'll work through those. It's always there's always conversation.
What's on the top between now and Tuesday?
Well, I think roster composition is probably the biggest thing.
What do you tell your team going on to the wild card game in a couple days?
There's not much we can tell them. They're ready to play. These guys are ready. I think I said this morning that there's no secrets here between the Diamondbacks and us. We've played them, obviously 19 times this season. They know us. We know them. It's going to come down to who plays the better game. Who pitches well, who gets key hits, who makes a play. Should be a really good game.
Tomorrow.
Yeah. Two last night, 4 tonight.
You see things kind of coming?
A little bit better. Yeah, I thought the couple of the at bats today, Thomas, were better.
Tomorrow's a travel day for you, correct?
Yes. tomorrow late afternoon.
Do you guys, the players, get the day off pretty much, or
Yep.
you can have a work fest?
No, if there's some guys that want to get in the cage, there'll be that opportunity. We're not going to do anything on the field. There's a couple pitchers who might want to throw off the mound a little bit tomorrow.
In the same vein as Freeland, what did you see from Hoffman today? Obviously, he had that blister.
Yeah, I think that blister was bothering him as the second inning went on. He tried to pitch through it. I think that was probably the reason why you saw some command issues, and probably the lack of the breaking ball usage. I think that that middle finger was troublesome.
And I guess overall, this season with him, I know he had some really good moments where he really needed them.
Yeah.
There early, but
Well, he showed well in spring training overall. We thought there were some things he needed to clean up, and we talked about that. Both physically and mentally. I think Jeff did make some growth in a number of areas. He popped into our rotation and makes a couple spot starts early and really performed. Really pitched well. We brought him up, sent him back, brought him up, sent him back, and he performed. And then when we brought him into rotation, he pitched really well. I think there was a time there where he was 5-0 with, like a 2 ERA, like in his first 35 innings or so. You can probably double check that, but really did some great work, as the time that I mentioned to Ed about, when all those four guys were in the rotation. So, and then I think as the, summer wore on, the league made some adjustments to him, and he hasn't quite adjusted back, but, again, I think big steps for Jeff. He can really be, satisfied with some of those games that he threw during the course of this year. Should, give him a good foundation moving into next year.
How do you prepare these guys to stay level-headed, get excited for the postseason? Because some of the guys have never made it this far.
Well, I think that with this group, and I think I mentioned it this morning as well, it's most of our players have good heads on their shoulders, and I don't have to worry about obviously the focus and the intensity part. I want them to be excited. I want them to enjoy this and be, have that feeling in their stomach about this game. But also know that we'll talk about how we play, and there's a looseness but yet an intensity to it that we'll talk about a little bit on Tuesday. There's really not a lot to say in these playoff type games because the guys know what's in front of them.
Nolan made another great play today.
Yep.
You got to see him day in, day out all year and how phenomenal
Right.
a player he is. What's that like for you?
Well, it's from my perspective or a coaching perspective, you appreciate the talent and you're very very happy to have him on your side. But when a player is as talented as he is defensively, it shows up almost every night. There's not a game that goes by where something doesn't happen defensively that he shines. And you realize that you're very fortunate to have that type of player. And I saw that from the other side, just a 3-game series here, 4-game series there. But every day we're watching a special defensive player. Okay.